here is going to have terms and names on this that are kind of important in this look. So when we look at that, republic, okay, a republic, it's important to understand a form of government in which power is in the hands of representatives and leaders who are elected by citizens who have the right to vote. If that doesn't sound familiar to you, it should, because the United States is a republic. Patricians in ancient Rome, a member of the wealthy, privileged upper class. The plebeians would be common farmers, artisans, merchants who made up most of the population there. You have a group of people who are known as tribunes, okay? An official elected by the plebeians to protect their rights. So that would be an elected official. He serves a big part in that. Consuls, one of the two most powerful officials that are elected. Each year they command the army and direct the government, so that's an important aspect. The Senate, the supreme governing body, it's originally made up of only aristocrats. You have a dictator, a leader given absolute power to make laws and command the army for a limited amount of time, and that's important to understand. You have a group of legions, okay, a military unit that's made up of about 5,000 foot soldiers, and usually have a group of cavalry as well. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 wars between Rome and Carthage, in which Carthage is defeated. And then lastly is Hannibal, a brilliant military strategist who wants to avenge the defeat of Carthage. So he's a Carthaginian leader, or military leader. So when we look at Rome itself, and how does it break down? The origins. It's founded in 753 BC by Romulus and Remus. They are twin sons of the god Mars and a Latin princess. They are eventually going to be abandoned, okay, as infants and raised by a she-wolf. So that picture there, that statue is actually a rather famous statue depicting Romulus and Remus being raised by the wolf there. And the twins, as they grow up, decide to build a city near the spot that they were at. And in reality, it was men, not mortals, who built the city of Rome. And they chose the spot largely for the strategic location and the fertile soil. So when we look at it, Rome's actual geography, it's built on 7 rolling hills at the curve on the Tiber River. And it's near the center of the Italian peninsula, somewhat midway between the Alps and Italy's southern tip. It's also near the midpoint of the Mediterranean Sea as well. And the very first Romans are going to arrive on the Italian peninsula in prehistoric times. So you're talking about 1000 to 500 BC. 3 groups are going to be a part of this: the Latins, the Greeks, and the Etruscans. The Latins are going to build the original settlement of Rome. Okay? The Greeks build the colonies that run along southern Italy and parts of Sicily. And then lastly, the Etruscans, who are native to northern Italy. And they build their own writing system that's actually going to be adopted by the Romans itself. And all of these groups, they influence Rome's architecture too, especially the use of the arch. And we will look at that as we go into these ideals too. So the early republic, right around 600 BCE, an Etruscan became king of Rome. And Rome is going to grow to a city that will cover about 500 square miles. And you have different groups of kings that order the construction of Rome's first temples, their first public centers, the most famous of those, which is the Forum. All right. You could see there on the left the kind of ruins of the Forum that exist. And it becomes the political heart of Rome itself. This is where politicians meet. This is where they discuss things. The 12 tables, which we will discuss later, is where are hung in the forum. The rules to the livelihood of the Romans. And so the political life of Rome is really at the center of this. The last king of Rome is going to be a man by the name of Tarquin the Proud. He's a tyrant, and he's going to be driven from power in 509 BC. The Romans then declare that they will never again be ruled by a king, and so they establish a republic. And with this, okay, a republic is that form of government in which power rests within the citizens. And they have the right to vote for their leaders, much like we do. If you guys aren't aware, we have an election coming up fairly soon. And so in Rome, citizenship with voting rights is granted only to free-born males. That's important to understand. It is not to everybody. It is free-born males that get to vote. So in the early republic, you have very different groups of Romans who are struggling for power. One group happens to be the patricians. They have inherited power. They have and social status. Generally, they are the wealthiest of groups to hold power. Another group is the plebeians. All right, and the plebeians are the majority of the population. The farmers, the farmers, artisans, merchants, just kind of the everyday people of Rome. And with that, you also have a group of people known as tribunes. They become representatives of the plebeians, and they are looking out for the livelihoods of the plebeians a lot of the time. The patricians are going to claim that they inherit power and social status. That was their thought process, is that they would inherit the power and the social status that existed amongst those groups. They claim their ancestry gives them that right. Obviously, we can understand what would happen with the plebeians in that realm of things. So we see that being discussed within that. And then the tribunes are those who are, generally speaking, they are patricians who represent the plebeian cause in that. So the 12 tables, okay, these are again hung in the forum. They are laws that are carved into tablets, and they become the basis for Roman law. It's a huge victory for the plebeians, was to have this written coded law that existed. Patrician officials would often interpret the law to kind of suit themselves, but in 451 BC, the group of people began writing down Rome's laws, and they carved the 12 tables or tablets that's hung in the forum. And this would be an example of it. It's not necessarily looks just like that, but that would be an example of what the 12 tables might have looked like. They established the idea that all free citizens have a right to protection under the law. And that is hugely powerful. All right. Within the government itself, we go away from this monarchy. So this balanced government is taken from the monarchy, the aristocracy, and the democracy. So monarchy being ruled by king, aristocracy being ruled mainly by like the nobles, and then democracy, which we understand as a rule by government of the people. And so how does it come to be? Well, there are two officials that are called consuls. They are commanded by the army and they direct the government. All right. Their power, though, is very limited, and they check each other's power. And not only that, their term is only 1 year long. So while some things can be good with that, it's also very hard to understand which group is actually doing well because they're only elected for shorter terms of service. And the same person cannot be elected consul again for 10 years. So what would that do? That would allow you to have some fresh ideas that come in, but it doesn't necessarily make things great. All right. Next, The Senate, okay, the Senate was the aristocratic branch of Rome's government. It had both the legislative and administrative functions in the Republic. So you have 300 members of that are chosen. All right. Usually it's always from the upper class of Roman society. And then later we start to see that plebeians will be allowed to be in the Senate. And then the assemblies, okay, the assemblies would be made up of the more democratic side of government. So an assembly organized by the plebeians, or a tribal assembly, they elect the tribunes and made laws for the common people. And then later on for the republic itself. In a time of crisis, you could have a dictator that is appointed. Why is that important? In terms of war, in order to try to go to war and make decisions based on that, in a democratic style of society, it's very hard to make decisions on whether or not you do, because you have to go through so many people and so many blocks of people. And so if you have one person who's making those decisions, it becomes much easier. And so you don't have to worry about those things as much. So in a time of crisis, like war, for instance, a dictator can be appointed, and then he would only have the power for 6 months. All right. Oh, excuse me. In the Roman army, so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we talked about the legions. 5,000 heavily armed foot soldiers or infantry, and then a group of soldiers on horseback, which are called cavalry. They support each legion. So legions are going to be divided into small groups of like 80 men. Generally speaking, that is called a century. All right. So Roman power grows slowly, but pretty steadily. And as the legions battle for control of places like the Italian peninsula, the 4th century BC, the Romans dominate central Italy. Eventually, they defeat the Etruscans in the north and the Greeks in the south. So by 265 BC, the Romans are mastering pretty much all of Italy. Rome has very different laws and treatment for different parts of the conquered territories. So the neighboring Latins on the Tiber River become full citizens of Rome. In territories farther from Rome, conquered peoples enjoy the rights of Roman citizenship, with the exception of the vote. Generally speaking, there are very lenient policies for conquered groups. All citizens there are allowed for them to create a large empire. So they are very lenient towards how they treat these groups of people. And Rome has one thing going for them. Their location gives it really easy access to riches of both land and sea. And so they are able to gather a lot of these different areas throughout this time. We also see some of the things that they would bring in during that time period would be things from different parts of the Mediterranean with this. One city, though, that wants to try to stop Rome's power is Carthage. Carthage is located on the North African coast, and they rise up in direct competition with Rome. So in 264 BC, Rome and Carthage fight what's known as the Punic Wars. The first battle is going to be for Sicily. And if you are Italian out there, you know pretty much where Sicily is. You have Italy that becomes the boot, and the football being Sicily. So the first battle lasts 23 years and ends in Carthage's defeat. The second battle, or the second Punic War, will begin in 218 BCE, when a very able general named Hannibal crosses the Alps and surprises the Italians. What he does there is he goes through Spain. Instead of just attacking the coast of Italy, he actually goes up and through Spain, across the Swiss Alps, and down into Rome. And he conquers a lot of area. He does not, however, conquer Rome. And that is the biggest problem. In the Third Punic War, there's an attack that is on Carthage. That is in the year 149 BCE. They attack Carthage, the actual city itself, and defeat the city. And in doing so, they set fire to the city itself, and 50,000 inhabitants will be sold into slavery. So badly is this defeat that they actually sow the ground in salt so that it would never be able to grow crops again. So Italy is going to definitely cause some problems for these different groups here. All right. And Carthage will never again become a power that is even able to compete with this. So if you look here on the left, that is a depiction of Hannibal. Okay. Elephants were used a lot in war during these times. It was one of the an elephant was a war machine, massive and able to transport a lot of different things in groups. And then in the middle there, you can see Hannibal's route to Rome. Again, coming through, and you can see where Carthage is there, but coming through Spain, up through the Swiss Alps, and then down into Italy itself. And then on the right is the burning and razing of the city, razing being not like bringing up, but tearing down the city of Carthage and setting it on fire. And again, like I said, sowing salt into the ground to really end that ideal. So, any questions regarding that?